Welcome to Senior Living Marketing Perspectives. I am Debbie Howard and from Senior Living Smart. And today I have a repeat guest because I felt like there was so much more we could talk about. So please help me welcome Reed Davis, Chief Learning Officer for One-on-One Sales Academy.
Hey, Debbie, thank you so much for having me back on the podcast. This might be my first repeat podcast guest appearance, so I'm excited to
Yeah.
be back.
Yeah, and I know so much has changed. So I thought it was a really good time to get back, really update everybody, because just maybe you can catch everybody up. You launched less than a year ago, what the vision was, what you've learned, where you are today, what the roadmap looks like. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we officially launched last September. So we started working and putting everything together last spring, and then we officially launched in September, and it's been a really interesting road. So I think that one of the things, it was funny because we had this initial idea of, hey, let's provide this space for people to come together, for people to be able to consume some content. Because I think one of the biggest challenges for our industry, and I know even for myself over the last few years, was like, hey, where do I go to get some good training content and material? I want to be able to, when I was on the provider side, even when I was the international director of training for Sherpa and then Align, it was like we would either people would send me YouTube videos or we would find different content that was really good, but there was no really central place to be able to go get that. And so the initial idea was like, let's bring together all of these great voices like you and Lacey Jungman and Kelly and Kristen and Aaron Cato and just all of these wonderful people that I think have really shaped senior living sales over the past couple of decades and get them together and have them teach some master classes. And I think that was a really great idea. But the fun part for us was that as we began to market the product, as we began to put it out there, we heard back from either people, we had some really early adapters who were like, this is great. I'm jumping right on this. I've always loved prospect centered selling, or you or David or whoever, and that was wonderful. And then we started getting some ideas, and they'd be like, "Hey, this is great, but can we do this or can we do that?" And really, what it boiled down to was we love having all of these amazing resources, but we've been trying to, for years, our goal every year has been to put together like a formal training program. And this was big companies, little companies, and the kind of common theme was we just have never had the time. It's
Right.
always something that gets put on the back burner, or we'll get to that next time. And then by the end of the year, it's come and gone, and we don't have that. And so we started to look at that and we start to listen to what are the common themes, just like you do when you're moving a prospect in, when you're trying to earn new business from somebody else. And we started hearing this common theme that people wanted like a learning management system. So they want to
Hmm.
be able to they want their people to be able to have the information, but they want to be able to scale it to where they can use it for onboarding, because that was one of the struggles that we constantly heard was
Yeah.
we've either been doing the same thing for years or we don't really have a formal process. We want to be able to measure like how much our people are learning or what they're learning. We want to be able to learn with them so that we can then provide for people that learn the basics. We want to be able to provide a little bit something more advanced. Or maybe it's we struggle. Something I've heard a lot lately is we're great in person, but we kind of struggle with that follow up. What do we do then? And so we started looking at how do we build out different courses. And what we came up with was, and when we looked, we were like, we have this great sales methodology that's been proven over the last 40 years. And there's
Yeah.
this entire network of people that have been using it and using it extremely successfully. But there's nothing that combines that sales methodology with a learning methodology. So then we started looking into how does the adult learner learn best? How can we do these things? And what we came up with and what we were introduced to by actually one of our customers was the Kirkpatrick model. And she kept referencing this Kirkpatrick model. And we were like, And then talking to her and learning about it, it's one of those things where, as a salesperson, I'm trying to sell the academy. You don't want to look like an idiot. So, oh, yeah,
Oh, the
totally.
Kirkpatrick
Yeah,
model, of
yeah.
course.
Wow.
Yeah. I've known
Who
about it
has,
for years.
oh, years,
Yes.
lived it every single day.
Yeah.
But the funny part was that as I started researching it, I was like, okay, here's kind of where we start to piece together, taking like, sorry, okay, taking this, here's where we start to piece together, taking this from just this really great library of content and being able to put some formality to it. And so what for those of you that are sitting out there and you're like, what's the Kirkpatrick model? I'll fake it
Yeah,
till
I'm
I make
dying.
it.
I'm dying to hear about it.
So it's really great. It's funny because the parallels, as we started really digging into this, the parallels between prospect centered selling is a really simple, really four-part model when you look at it, right? You have the paradigm shift where you look at the transactional approach versus the prospect centered approach, connection, building trust. You have untangling the emotional resistance, and then you have advancing, right? Planning to advance. The Kirkpatrick model breaks down learning in somewhat of a similar way. So what they do is they first look at engagement. So is the content engaging? Does it make people want to watch? And we're like, hey, nailed the first part, right? That was the entire, really the antithesis behind the initial idea was to create engaging content that people wanted to interact with. But then the second part was is learning and measuring. Did you learn that content? So not just did you watch it, because in the initial academy, we could see if you watched it. We could give you a report that showed who watched what and how long they spent watching it, but really measuring learning. So what we did is we started to layer in some learning checkpoints. So not only could you regurgitate what you watched, but did you actually learn what was important in there as well? And then the third part of the Kirkpatrick model is starting to measure behavior change. And so looking at, okay, taking what I learn, applying what I learn, and am I changing the way that I sell? If I was really transactional, am I
Mhm.
starting to ask better questions, more personal questions, open-ended questions? Am I starting to do more creative follow-ups? And I'm not talking about sending a thank you card or flowers. I'm talking about truly personalized follow-ups. Am I doing the home visits? Am I looking at the advances? Are the things that I'm doing, are they actually changing the way I play the game, so to speak, or changing the way I sell? And then the fourth part of it is measuring the results. And so seeing in your CRM. Now, listen, we can't help with measuring your results, right? Like that's
Right.
why you invested in a wonderful CRM that you use. You can measure your results, but what we can do is help with the behavior change. And so what we did was we recreated a rubric that can be used from everything from a secret shop or listening to one of your recorded phone calls or a tour that you did where you accompanied your salesperson, or the salesperson can score themselves if they use the technology where they record the tour, phone calls, all of those kind of things. And you can
Yeah.
start to see and measure as you go and as you do it time over time again, is my score getting better because my behavior is changing and I'm doing things differently? And so that's really where we've evolved. And then the kind of last piece to that puzzle was then how do we, from a technology standpoint, make that happen in the Sales Academy? And so what we're getting ready to launch is version 2.0. Still has all the same great content, still has the monthly webinar series, still has everything that people I think really enjoy about using the Academy now with the Resource Center and all that. But now you have courses that you can actually go in and take. There's an introductory course for that somebody like a concierge that answers your phone could use, or a business office person, or the chef to be able to understand the sales process. And then there's courses for each one of our sales. There's
Hmm.
also going to be e-learning. That's a self-guided course that walks you through the sales process in senior living and introduces you to prospect centered selling. It actually is based off of the documentary that David did. So it
Hmm.
follows two prospects, their families, and the sales team through the sales process. So as you're going through this interactive e-learning course, you're learning right along with people that were actual prospects that became residents at a senior living community. And so I think what we've done is we've really taken that idea of a learning resource library and turned it into an interactive, functional, I I think, I don't know of any other learning management system that's geared towards sales specifically for senior living. So
Oh,
dare I say first of its kind?
I think so. I haven't heard of any other, but I think it so nicely complements what is more traditional, right? So people, you talk about sales training and people say, oh, sure, we do sales training. We train them when we hire them. Or they have a weekly sales meeting with their executive director, or once a year we send them to a conference or we bring a speaker or something in. Can you speak a little bit? So I feel like this is a huge compliment for reinforcing, and it's really additive to anything that's traditionally been offered. So when you look at all the different ways to really elevate your sales talent and senior living sales, how do you define the difference between formal training versus modeling, mentoring, coaching, those weekly sales meetings, and then this kind of always on, and also being able to have a community of other salespeople that you can engage with if you're stuck or if you're frustrated? Or can you talk a little bit about how all of these things relate to each other? Because I do think it's like a recipe. You can't leave out any of those magical ingredients.
Yeah, no, the thing is that what I've seen over the years, I've done a lot of sales trainings, 1 or 2 day sales trainings. And I think there's a lot of magic that happens in those, right? One of them is getting together with peers. And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the greatest things. I'd like to think I deliver a pretty good sales training, but I think what kind of when the magic happens, it's being able to be together with your peers, bouncing ideas off of one another. I remember when I used to put on sales trainings for my company, one of the things that we would always get the most feedback was it was just great to be around my peers and to be able to get ideas from them, to learn what they're doing well, what maybe share what we're doing well and be able to learn from one another. But the problem with that is that it normally wears off after
Mhm.
a couple of weeks. Everybody goes back and you're really energized and raw, let's go get them. And then you don't continue to practice that. You don't continue, you get caught up in the day to day or the pressures and the
Right.
stresses, and that kind of starts to fade away. And I've made this analogy before, and I'll take it to the grave, is that I think when we talk about if you want consistent performance, look at top athletes and what they do. They spend 99% of their time training. They watch film, and people are going to be like, we've heard this from you before, Reed. But I'm like,
Yeah.
listen, I record my U14 and U11 soccer games, and it's not like I go and drill them with it,
Yeah.
but I'll send them clips and be like, hey, look what we did really well, or look at what we need to work on. And I know me as a coach, it helps me as a coach be able to understand what are we doing well, what are the things that we're missing. But I think that there's a reason why when you think about how much a professional athlete trains, they spend all that time because when that happens in a game, they know what to do. And I
Yeah.
think as salespeople, sometimes when we just get caught up in just constantly playing a game, we don't ever have time to practice. We don't ever have time to tweak. We don't ever have time to learn. And unfortunately, in senior living sales, the only time that we ever get to practice is normally on prospects.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and it sucks for the prospect, it sucks for us. Like,
Yeah.
and so I always hear, I think when you look at top performers have this thirst for knowledge. They're constantly learning, they're constantly working on their skill, they're constantly looking at how can I improve what I've been doing. And so I think that when we think about the academy or any ongoing, just whether it's monthly coaching or every couple of weeks, it's that skill building that kicks in. And I'll hopefully this translates for people, but there was a former UFC heavyweight champion named Frank Mir, and I was friends with one of his trainers. And I remember him telling me this story, and he said it was a UFC championship fight. and he just got rocked in the first part of the fight. And he was basically knocked out on his feet. And he ended up winning. And I said, "How did that happen?" And he was like, what Frank said about it was that his training just kicked in. So he
Hmm.
didn't know what was going on, right? He's rocked, concussed, has no idea. All of a sudden, an arm appears, and he said muscle memory and
Yeah.
training kicked in, and he knew exactly what to do. And he ended up submitting the guy and got him in an arm bar and submitted him. He was like, he didn't remember the fight. He did. That's what he remembered is just seeing an arm and then remembered the fight being over, right? Now, from a mental standpoint and a health standpoint, not the greatest,
Not a good
not
idea.
a good
No.
idea. I try to avoid getting punched in the
Yes.
face as much as I can. I've been pretty successful at it my entire life. But the moral of the story is that you build that muscle memory so that you do those things that really count in the sales process and you do them without even having to think about them. So
Right.
it's instead of talking 80% of the time, it's you're talking 20% of the time because muscle memory kicks in and you just instinctually ask that open-ended question. Tell me more. How does that make you feel? Why is that? And I don't think
Yes.
sometimes that comes naturally to salespeople. But I think the more you practice it, the more you try it, the more you can learn about it and learn
Hmm.
different techniques and ideas and how to put it into your own language, the more it becomes muscle memory and you just automatically instinctually do it.
I think it's going to be so interesting once this launches to see what people are consuming, what are the popular topics, what's getting revisited often, to really understand what are the common areas of just I need more support, I need more reinforcement, I need more practice in this area. When is it launching, Reed? When's it going to be
Uh,
available?
it'll be available, I think July 1st is when,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so it's coming up here in a couple of weeks, which will be really great. And to your point, that's been one of the most interesting things to me is sometimes the stuff that we are like, that was pretty good, right? It was a pretty good podcast. It was a little bit off the normal topic or whatever. And those are the ones that just knock it out of
Yeah.
the park. We just had a company email us a couple of weeks ago about one of the sales master classes, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is like, we can't stop watching this. This has been the most popular one." And I would agree. I
Yeah.
think all of our sales master classes are awesome, but then I'll have another company that emails me about, I just had another one email me, same thing about a completely different one. It's just,
Different one.
I think it depends on like, where's the company at? Where is somebody at in their individual development and what lands with certain
Yeah.
people?
Yeah, I think it's going to be so interesting to watch the engagement, and I'll have to have you back on for a third time to tell us like,
Yeah.
what are the learnings from that? Because I bet there will be surprises, like what you're seeing around just what are the most popular
Well,
episodes and
I think too, the number one thing I hear when somebody brings me in to do a sales training, the number one thing, I'm like, I wish I had a nickel for every time I heard this is they've heard it from me for years. I think they're tired of hearing me.
mm,
They just need a different voice.
yep.
And so a lot of times I'm that different voice. And that was one of the driving factors in the sales academy. And I think why different ones speak to different people is because, like, Mike Miller's take on sales, although very similar to ours,
Mhm.
is a little bit different. He uses a
Yeah.
little bit different techno or terminology. A little, what he says might land. Whereas, like, Lacey Jungman, different energy, different, slightly different approach. At the end of the day, we all have this common theme that we're here to be able to help more seniors.
Hmm.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But some people are going to gravitate towards Kelly, and the more you know, the more you close. Some people are going to
That
gravitate,
curiosity.
yeah, like that curiosity
Curiosity.
right side. Whereas I think like Lacey's is a little bit more like with the 6 stages of working genius is a little bit more of, I would say probably like maybe a scientific approach.
More
Like, hey,
process.
yeah, process. Hey, here are these types of people and what they do well and how they can all function together as a
Mhm.
team. And some people are a lot more process oriented and some people are a lot more, I'm not your most process oriented person, but I
Yeah.
love like to me, the psychology behind 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 it is what stands out to me and what really kind of like grabs my attention. I think that's what was really 15 years ago when I was introduced to prospect center selling. That was the thing that grabbed my attention was the psychology of it. And some people
Yeah.
gravitate towards data, and it's all fine. And that's why we've brought together this mix of voices because different people are going to speak to different folks.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you've really created a community of providers, but also thought leaders who are all aligned with putting the prospect at the center of their
Yeah.
decision, but they approach it differently. And so people are going to naturally find that voice that's most relevant to them and where they are. I really appreciate the collaboration of having that sense of choice.
We have this industry, as you've spent so long in this industry as I have, is I think the one thing that constantly stands out to me is that we have these amazing people. And we talked a little bit about it as we were preparing for the podcast, was like, there's a bunch of different marketing companies. A lot of them do
Yep.
different things. They're not all, not two marketing companies are not created equal.
No.
There's a lot of different people that offer sales training in our industry. We also wanted to create a place where people could come together and learn about different services in this industry, right? There's different CRMs, there's different marketing companies, there's different platforms that do different things. Some of them might do some things similarly, some of them might not. And we wanted to be able to create this sense of community in this industry because when you go to a conference, everybody knows one another. I would
Yeah.
never, when I was with Sherpa, and I started with Sherpa in 2020, the very first after the pandemic, the very first in
Yeah.
person, I'm in line to get a beer, and like the guy in front of me turns around and says something to me, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, what's your name?" I'm Reed, and he was like, "Oh, my name's Teddy," and I'm like, "Oh, who are you with?" And he's like, "I'm with Welcome Home," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm with Sherpa Ty." Like
Yeah.
huge competitors. Welcome Home
Right.
was like blowing up on the market. But you know
Yeah.
what? Throughout my time with
Still
Sherpa,
two guys having a beer, right?
oh, like I actually have a call with him this afternoon. And that's the thing about this industry is we're all here for one common purpose. And that's ultimately, from our standpoint, it's to help people help more seniors. But ultimately, it's how can we get more seniors into these wonderful communities to be
Yeah.
able to live out the best years at and live their best life to be
Yeah.
able to do it. It doesn't matter if you offer the same product or not. And I think that on a national, and I would even say international level, when you go to these trade shows, everybody's really, at the end of the day, we are all really friendly. There's no animosity. And so we wanted to create a place where if you wanted to come in and you want to look at Welcome Home and Align and Yardy or
Hmm.
whoever, that you can find a community of people that have experience with all of those and you can get an opinion on what people like, what people don't like. I have people reach out to me all the time to say, "Hey, do you know this person? We're looking at maybe hiring them." Or people that reach out and go, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm looking for a new role. Do you know anybody that's been hiring?" And to be able to be that conduit to connect those people, I think is amazing.
Yeah, everybody helps each other. I loved seeing people commenting for reach and sharing opportunities with each other.
Yeah.
And then, so another direction you're going in is this sales summit, right? So let's kind of transition into the in-person experience. So people can join the kind of the network, the Sales Academy. They can actually hire you to come in and do those in-person, on-site, company branded type of trainings. You can put those into place. And now there's also the summit coming up as an opportunity to learn and network together. Can you give us a sense of what that's all about, what the themes are, what you're focusing on?
Yeah, the summit is something I think that one of the things that I've learned over the years is you have these amazing opportunities at these conferences to go connect. Now, sometimes the content might be maybe it's AI heavy, or maybe it's marketing
Hmm.
heavy, or it's this. The common thing that we kept hearing was that none of these conferences just focus on sales.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. We lack information on sales. And so when we go to a conference, maybe they have a handful. I know I can tell you, I think conferences are starting to swing the pendulum back towards focusing a little bit more on sales. I think our industry has done a really good job speaking up, saying, hey, we
Mhm.
want more. If we're going to go to these things, we don't want it to be a sales pitch all the time. We want it to be focused on sales. We want to go in and learn. And we took a page out of Tony Mullins' playbook. And for those of you that haven't been around for a while, Tony Mullins, I think, was a guy, he's one of David Smith's mentors and partners that he worked with for years. Deb, I know you knew
Yeah.
Tony.
Great guy.
Yeah, great guy. And he put on this literally no frills sales conference, and it was called Tony Mullins Sales Summit. I mean, he
Yep.
just smacked his name right on it. And it was 2 days of you didn't go to a bunch of congruent sessions, you didn't leave the room, there wasn't this huge trade room floor. It was people, and I think one of the coolest parts was from inside and outside the industry
Yep.
that came together to talk about sales. And
Yeah.
Tony would he I spoke a couple of times at his conferences. He'd give you the topic or let you come up with a topic or suggest one, but then he would push you on your topic, and it's not a sales pitch. It's like, this is,
Right.
listen. And at that time, I was a provider. I wasn't trying to sell anything anyway, but he would really push you to learn more, dig further. Don't do the same presentation that you've done time and time again. And so when we started to put together the Sales Academy, we were like, we need an in-person opportunity for people to come together and learn. And
Yep.
so last year, I wouldn't say it was last minute, but we launched in September, and we were like, let's have a sales summit in St. Louis in December. And we did it first week of December. It
It
snowed,
snowed.
freak snowstorm. But what blew me away was that people literally took trains, planes, and automobiles to be able to come together. It was like 175 people in St. Louis to just learn about sales. And we had people a la Tony Mullins. We had people from inside the industry. We had perspectives from outside. We had providers speak. We had vendors speak.
Yeah.
None of them gave a sales pitch. Although I will say, from a vendor side, I think all of them got business from it, but none of them gave a sales pitch. And
Yeah.
they spoke about really what makes a difference in either the sales process or storytelling or something that you could relate back to sales, right? Asking better
Yeah.
questions, being more present, whatever that looked like. And we mixed in, I loved the SHN format where it's like short panels, 30-minute panel
Yeah.
sessions, and you can go to different ones. But I also love when I see people engaging on stage too. So we've mixed in a little bit of both of those
Okay.
because there's a lot of different opportunities. I think from a panel, it's great because you get these different perspectives and these different ideas. And so we've mixed those together. So September 14th, 15th, and 16th, we are having our second annual sales summit. We just call it the one-on-one sales summit in St. Louis. And again, it's really, I hate to say no frills because it's not boring.
No,
But
it's
the
not. It's
the
great.
feedback we got from last year was like, this was the best sales conference we've ever been to. And it was a day and a half of, I think what makes company training so good is that it's a day and a half of, you hear from probably 20 different people by the time you factor in
Yeah.
all the panel sessions, 50 or 20 to 25 people. And you get to mingle. We have time set up for you to be able to mingle and talk with peers. And I think one of the reasons why I'm at where I'm at today is because I had the opportunity to go to these conferences when I was on the provider side, and I met not only some great vendors, but like some really great people from other companies that we've stayed in touch with all of these years, and that we can bounce ideas off of each other. You can text that person and say, hey, you got a minute to chat? I'm either struggling with this, or I need an idea, or how did you do this? And I think
Hmm.
everybody is so collaborative. And so being able to provide that space, and I'm really excited about some of the speaker lineups. Like we're going to be showing the documentary that Schlegel did, called
Yes.
Stories from the Green Bench. It'll be the
Bench.
first time that it's shown in its entirety in the United States. And we have there's an honest to God movie theater in the hotel. So at the end of day one, we've scheduled in time to have everybody go down and watch that in the theater. And then the next day, the VP of marketing and the assistant VP of sales for Schlegel are going to be talking about not necessarily about what it's done for Schlegel from a marketing standpoint, but what did that mean for those residents to be able to tell those stories and to be able
Right.
to visit those places, and why did they make it? Because they didn't make it to make money or to as a
Right.
marketing promo for their company. They're like 96% occupied. They're an amazing company. Like
Yeah.
they did it to be able to provide a platform for some of their residents to be able to tell their stories and to be able to share their wisdom that they've gained over the years. And so there's going to be several different things like that. We have people talking about how to have tough conversations. We have presenters talking about emotional intelligence, not from a senior living standpoint, but from you as a leader or a salesperson. Like how does that manifest itself in your day to day as you go through your day? And so being able to do things like that. We have Jamie Sexton from Further is going to be talking about what are the things that they've learned with over 10,000 interactions with their sales simulator. And so really like different diverse topics just about senior living sales. And so we're really excited to be able to have that. We actually have a panel that's talking about making your resident ambassador program into a sales tool that's going to have residents, actual
Oh, it's
resident
great. I
ambassador,
love
actual resident
that.
ambassadors. And there's a couple of different companies that do the Gatesworth in St. Louis, and then Matt Barger from SLC. They have unbelievable resident ambassador programs that not only help them sell, they help them do outreach, they help them not just onboard new residents that move in, but sharing all of these things that all of these wonderful people from inside and outside the industry do. We have a panel on sales culture, which I think is going to be really cool. How do we build an engaging and fun sales culture that actually attracts people instead of always having to chase employees and retain employees? So it's just going to be, I'm super excited about it. It was a really uplifting conference last year. I couldn't tell if it was because I was so impressed that everybody actually made it through a snowstorm or if it
Yep.
was their reaction to it. But we have Danny Merlino coming in. Danny started out, for
Yeah,
those that
she's
don't
great.
know, started out as a
Yep.
server.
Yeah.
And now she's
I
a
love her
CEO and
story.
owns a
Yeah, it's
company.
cool.
Also, they do an amazing job with their sales program and I think that they do an amazing job with everything. She brought one of her residents to speak at our Genum, which I think
Yeah.
is just got to be, from that resident standpoint. I can't imagine the sense of pride and accomplishment and belonging that resident probably had. But I'm so thrilled with who all is speaking this year, and the content that we have, I think, is just incredible. I hope to be able to kind of redo the magic that we had last year.
Without the snow, just without the snow,
Hey,
Lee,
that's why we
please.
did it in September. Listen,
Thank
like I
you.
don't think it's ever snowed in St. Louis in September. So that's why we did it. And the cool thing is about that is that it's not just Sales Academy members that can come, it's anybody.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really cool. We just had we did a sales workshop that was open to everybody. We had a home healthcare company there, which was really
hmm
cool. It's the first time for me to be able to have that. And really, it's not so much about sales as it's about talking to people and really doing a better job of pulling that story out rather than always just constantly trying to put information in.
Yeah. I will say last year I was able to go. It was wonderful. And every time that a session ended, I was so sad. I could have listened to all of those speakers and all of those panels for another half hour. I was just like, this is such great content.
We actually cut down on our speakers and gave them a little bit more time because,
Good.
yeah, I hated when some of them had to be like, oh, okay, I only
And they
got like,
started flipping really fast through their slides, and you're like, oh, but I
yes.
really wanted to
You're
dig
like,
into that.
oh, that's
So
so good. So yeah,
good.
so we did that because it's trying to find the sweet spot too. Like when you're
Yeah.
in the same room for a day and a half, you don't want to have them sit the whole time. But that was the cool part last year, was that people are like, hey, we want more. And
Yeah.
ultimately, you shouldn't leave a conference session going, oh,
Yeah.
either I wasted my time, It was a sales pitch, which by the way, we don't allow anybody to do a sales pitch. It's also because we don't charge anybody to speak. Everybody that speaks is there on
Yes.
their own volition to come in and be able to do that. And you shouldn't leave going, that's basic. I already knew
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I definitely left everybody wanting more last year. So I'm excited for the lineup. I think you and I might be doing something around aligning marketing and sales, and
Yeah,
that'll
yeah.
be fun.
You know what's funny? This is the weirdest thing to me is that last year when we asked about more speakers, David and I were the two most requested speakers, and we
Yeah.
didn't speak last year because we are like, this isn't about us. This is about bringing together all of these different voices. But it's cool because so we took that feedback, and so I'll be the opening keynote, which is weird.
Yeah.
It's weird for me to say. It's also weird for me when I demo the academy and my big head pops up in some of those videos. I still
I miss your
haven't.
Ted Lasso look. I gotta say, I really
Hey,
miss it.
be curious.
Curious.
Listen, that's a once a year thing. I don't know if my wife would really enjoy. She does not enjoy that month that I grow a
Yeah.
mustache, even though we do raise a lot of money and it's for a good cause. But Ted Lasso is I always say in life, I think it's important to have a real hero, and my grandfather for
Mm,
sure is my real hero, my person that lived, but a fictitious one that kind of also inspires and drives. And Ted Lasso is that for me. And the funny part is, it has nothing to do with soccer. That is the
that's it.
lowest part on why he is like an inspiration for me. But I think it's how he motivates and how he tells stories and his story too, and how he coaches through knowing nothing about what he's coaching about,
Yeah.
and how he inspires people to want more from themselves.
Yeah.
So,
I love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
We are going to have information in the show notes, and we'll have a link over to be able to register for the Sales Summit. So we're hoping a lot of listeners will go ahead and take that opportunity. And you know what I think was really interesting, Reed, maybe we can just finish on this, is one thing that surprised me as we were just warming up and preparing to record this session is I would think that the people who sign up for the Sales Academy and are really engaged in consuming content are people who are struggling, people who are at 60, 70, 75% occupied, where we all know you're not breaking even. You're not making money until around 85% occupancy. So I thought it was so interesting if you could share with the team about the makeup of who really participates most heavily in the academy.
Yeah, and this part is really surprising to me too, is that the majority of our companies that use the academy aren't struggling. Now, everybody has communities that are struggling, right? You always
Right.
have your, you know, problem children, so to speak, and sometimes they're not even the same children all the time. One gets
It's
ungrounded,
whack-a-mole.
the
It's
other
total
one, yeah.
whack-a-mole. Yeah.
But I think the thing that is the most interesting part to me is that the majority of our companies that use the academy are 90 to 95% occupied.
Yeah.
And I think that, and what we've done too is sometimes when somebody will come to us and say, hey, I want to enroll our struggling communities. And we say, that's great. And you can certainly do that, right? We're not going to tell anybody no, of course. But we say, what you should do is if you're going to enroll your struggling communities, you should also enroll your top performing communities, because those are the communities that most often get forgotten about. And they say, my boss one time told a company, he goes, listen, you can work from the moon. I don't care what you do as long as you're 95% occupied. Now, that I don't know if that's necessarily the
Yeah.
best strategy. Tend to see those companies that think like that, those communities at some point dip and then they don't know what to do. But the thing that my point is, my dad always says, I told you that to tell you this, is that I think your top performers are people that have this thirst for knowledge. They always want to get better. They
Yeah.
always want to improve. And they are the ones that seek out those resources. And so I love when I see a company. I just did a training for a company a couple weeks ago, and they're 95% occupied and always have been, and or not always have been over the last couple of years, But it's only been since they invested in training in the sales academy that they've been able to maintain that because their salespeople have a way to be able to continue to learn. Nobody's perfect, right? Like
No?
you don't get to the major leagues and stop practicing. The World Cup's on right now, right?
Yeah.
I've watched all or part of every single game so far, and those guys are constantly training, right? The best in the world, Messi, is constantly training. He's training in Kansas City as we speak. And so that's how I think top salespeople stay top salespeople is that they constantly sharpen their tools. Now, if you're struggling, sometimes a struggling salesperson isn't necessarily a bad salesperson. There's some
Mhm.
outside factors that I think go into that as well. But being able to provide your top performers with the same tools that your bottom performers or even your mid range performers have, I think is incredibly impactful. So it's been cool to see me to have all these companies that call and they say, "Hey, we're actually doing really well." Those are the ones that sign up for the sales academy the quickest.
That's
But
funny.
it's a culture of learning, right? They
Yeah.
understand. I think that I'll say this, I'll take this to the grave and I'll say it time and time again is that there's a reason top performing companies are top performing companies. They have an amazing culture. They invest in learning, not just for sales, for everybody,
Mm.
right? They have this attitude of we want to promote internal people. We want to give them the education and the tools to be able to continue learning. So if you're an executive director that's a really high performing executive director and you want to be a VP of operations, instead of keeping them as an executive director, they give them the tools and the opportunities to be able to continue to learn. They don't just throw a well-performing executive director into that VP of operations role because we've seen it with sales time and time again where you have an unbelievable sales director and you throw them into a regional position and they fail.
Yeah.
But they give them that pathway and those learning opportunities to continue to grow and improve. And those are the ones that eventually become fantastic leaders in your company.
Yeah. Reed, thank you so much for sharing your senior living marketing perspective with us today. I will see you at the summit. I hope lots of listeners will be at the summit. And thanks for joining the
Yeah.
conversation.
Thanks, Deb. Appreciate
Take
it.
care.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye.